Hi, I'm Mrs. Vance. I'm reading chapter 15 of the Doughnut Fix. Mom was right. The Stinky Cheese Farm's butter, milk, and cream were all mind-blowing, and a great deal too, because Riley wasn't going to charge for delivery since he was in Petersville anyway. His butter would be a little harder to work with because it came in different size lumps instead of sticks, but it was worth it. He weighed each so you knew how much you were paying for, but there was nothing on the package to help you measure out pieces, like the lines printed on the paper around the sticks of butter. I'd just have to use Mom's cooking scale to measure out what I needed. We still had to make deals with suppliers for the other ingredients. To do that, the book said we were supposed to call back the wholesalers with the lowest prices and play them off each other to see if we could get them to go even lower. Since Josh and I didn't have the first clue how to do this, I decided to ask my dad for help. He'd done a lot of negotiating when he worked at the bank, so I thought he was qualified even though he was family. Besides, I had a feeling Winnie's warning against doing business with family applied more to siblings than parents. Just to be safe, though, I decided not to tell her. It was the day after Josh and I had made the calls. Dad was in his office reading another book about windmills. His latest plan was to put windmills up all over our property to harness the wind that constantly whips around our house, threatening to knock it down. He was sure that with the right number, we could power our whole house. He was super excited about that. He kept talking about how we needed to go to Denmark to see their wind farms, because they get something like half their electricity from wind there. I was terrified that this was the one project he'd actually stick with. He'd shown me photos of the windmills he wanted, and they were like something out of a sci-fi nightmare. It was bad enough up there on Terror Mountain without things that looked like transformers towering over us. Dad, can I ask you something? I said from the door to the office. It's about the donut stand. It's kind of a business question. He closed the book. Sure, fire away. I went inside and showed him all the information Josh and I had gotten from the suppliers. So now we're supposed to negotiate for the best prices, I explained. But something didn't seem right about that. Isn't a price a price? I mean, you have the choice whether to buy something or not. Can you actually tell the seller to lower his price? Is that even legal? Dad laughed. Yes, it's legal. Even if it is, it still feels weird, like something I shouldn't do. You got to get over that. You know what you need? What? A pitch. What you're going to say to convince these guys to lower their prices. Oh yeah, they talk about that in the book. Yeah, a really good pitch, he said, and stood up from his desk all of a sudden like he'd just remembered he had somewhere to go. Where he had somewhere to be, but then he didn't go anywhere. All right, take me through everything. This is going to be so great. I must have just been sitting there staring at him, because then he clapped and said, Come on, get me up to speed. We got a lot of work to do. That's when I knew Winnie's warning about family did apply to parents, and by then it was too late. Okay, so first I made a list of, wait, he grabbed my arm. You know what we need? No, what? Supplies. He looked way too excited. I got the book and paper and stuff. No, we need to be able to see all the information someplace. Visual representation of information is key. We need poster board and different colored Post-its and flags and markers and maybe a microphone so we can tape you and you can hear yourself doing the pitch. And are you writing all this down? The good news was Dad found a new project, one he actually knew something about. The bad news was the project was me. For 4 hours and one trip to this office supply store in Crellin, later, my parents' office had been transformed into Tom Levine's negotiation boot camp. Every piece of information I had about the donut business was now color-coded on Post-its and stuck to the wall along with a poster board with my pitch in bullet points, the words I was supposed to punch, highlighted in neon orange, and Dad had this theory that you had to punch the most important words in each sentence. I think I'm ready now. My voice was hoarse from practicing the pitch. Almost, he said. You need to hit those punch words harder. Okay. It's definitely better, much better, and I'm beginning to think that what you really need now is a dry run. I've already run through it 20 times. No, I mean live, a real person. So you have to think on your feet. You need to know there's nothing wrong with negotiating, but let me start over. You need to know there's nothing wrong with negotiating, that you're not going to get into trouble. Otherwise, you won't sound confident, and confidence is key, right? The worst thing that can happen is somebody says no. Fine, I moan. What do you want to do? Get your coat. This was going to be painful, I could just tell. 15 minutes later, my father pulled up in front of Rennie's on Main Street. You want me to negotiate at the gas mart, I said. Yup, but the prices are printed on everything. So, you can't negotiate in a place like that. Now, I was getting angry. The stuff he'd made me do in the office was embarrassing enough, but at least that was in private. Of course you can. A price is just whatever the seller and the buyer agree to. That's what I'm trying to teach you. Fine, I yelled. But this is it. I do this, and then I get to make the calls. No more practicing. This is it, I promise, he said. Okay, let's get this over with, I said, and got out of the car. Dad was smiling with his big, goofy smile like this was about to be the most fun he could ever have. Once inside, Dad walked slowly up and down the aisles, studying the shelves, and I followed along behind. On our fourth loop around the store, I noticed the pimply kid right behind the register, eyeing us like we were going to steal something. So what should we get? I whispered. These. He pulled a pair of sunglasses off the rack. They sell these at CVS in Crellin for $10. The sticker on the glasses read $11.99. I looked at the glasses and then at the kid behind the register. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. Just do it, he said, and handed me the glasses. I didn't move. Now go, he said, shooing me away. There was no way my father was going to let me chicken out of this. This wasn't like deciding I didn't actually want to jump off that cliff into the waterfall on vacation last year in Mexico. People don't need to be able to jump off cliffs into waterfalls. But being able to negotiate, that, as my father had been telling me all afternoon, was a life skill, something I had to learn how to do, or I'd spend the rest of my life getting ripped off. I turned around, walked to the register, and put the glasses on the counter. The kid tipped his baseball cap to look at me. That'll be $12.92. Seems kind of high, I mumbled. What? Seems kind of high. There are cheaper ones in there, I think. He pointed at the rack. You want me to go check? This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The guy was trying to be helpful, and now I was going to give him a hard time. I stood there for a minute, not sure what to do next, and I turned around and started back to the rack, but there was my dad standing right in front of it, pumping his fist in the air. I guess it was supposed to be some kind of hang tough, son thing, but it just made me feel even more like a wimp. And not because I was too chicken to negotiate, but because I was too chicken to tell my dad how stupid this was. I took a deep breath and I turned back to the register. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, really. I want these glasses. It's just that they seem like a lot, for what they are. I was thinking that they're more like $10 glasses. That's what they sell them for at CVS in Crellin. The kid pulled off his cap, smoothed back his hair, and then put it back on. So go to Crellin then, I guess. But don't you want my business? The kid looked over my shoulder and at my dad, who had this look on his face like he'd just seen me make a basket from the middle of the court in the last second of the game. Is this a dare? The kid asked. No, I'm just trying to negotiate with you. If you lower the price, I'll buy them here instead of going to Crellin. Man, I can't negotiate with you. This isn't my store. Do you know what Rennie would do to me if he found out I was selling his stuff for less than he said to? I looked back at my dad, who tick-tocked his head as he thought about this, and then he nodded and mouthed, okay. Okay, I said to the kid. Sorry, I pulled them back. So it was a dare? Not really. I don't get it. This is weird. I know, you're right. It is, sorry, I said, and I walked out. So, Dad said as we drove home. So what? I said. That was so embarrassing. But you didn't get into trouble. You didn't get arrested, right? Right, I admitted. And you learned something else, too. Yeah, don't negotiate at the gas mart. No, make sure that the person you're talking to has the authority to negotiate. Oh, right, that too, I said. By the time we got home, it was too late to make the calls. So the first thing the next morning, Dad and I locked ourselves back up in the office, and I called Pinehurst Food Corps, which had tied with Elwyn Farms for the lowest prices. "Hello, may I speak to Carl, please?" I said. Carl was the guy I'd spoken to the first time, and Dad and I should ask to speak to him again because it was important to develop relationships in the business world. Also, I knew Carl was the owner of the company, so he'd have the power to negotiate. "For you, Carl," shouted the man who had answered. A second later, Carl was on the line. "Yeah? Hi, Carl. This is Tristan Levine from Petersville. Maybe you remember?" Yeah, I remember. "You ready to put in your order? I'm actually calling about the price you quoted us." "Yeah, what about it?" "Well, I just wanted to make sure that it was the best you could do for us. You know, because we're a small business, just starting out, without any additional savings. We could really use some help. Also, even though I know we're not ordering large quantities now, if the donut stand does as well as we expect it to, we'll definitely be increasing those numbers." I'd done my pitch perfectly. I punched my words, not a single and only one "you know." Based on what Dad had said, I fully expected the next words out of Carl's mouth to be, "Well, sure, I'd love to help you out, and I do think I can do a little better. How about if we cut the price by 5%? But that's not what happened. "What?" Carl said. I repeated my pitch word for word, a little louder this time, wondering if maybe Carl's hearing was going. Turns out Carl hears just fine. "Let me get this straight. You want me to take my profit and pass it on to you. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?" Carl shouted into the phone. I looked at Dad and tried to hand him the phone, but he shook his head and pushed it back to me. No, I guess it's just that we thought we could really use that money to buy some other stuff." Okay, looking back, that was really a stupid thing to say. I just hadn't been prepared for someone to get all bent out of shape by my just asking if they could give us a better price. Dad kept saying the worst thing they could do was say no, but this was way worse than no. And what about me? What about my business? Don't I got other stuff I need money for? Don't I got 2 kids heading off to college next year? Twins! I don't even get a break because they start the same year. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I just thought that since Elwyn Farms quoted us the same price, you might want the chance to underbid them." "That's extortion. That's what that is." "What? No, that's not what I meant." I turned to my father and whispered, "What's extortion?" Dad chuckled, and I put my hand over his mouth. No, I know exactly what you're doing," Carl said. "Please, can I just explain?" "No, you want to do business with that slime bucket over at Elwyn, you go right ahead. The 2 of you deserve each other," he growled and hung up. "Thanks a lot," I said to my father. "Yeah, well, some people don't like you to negotiate. They take it personally." And wasn't this a piece of information you should have shared with me before I made that call? "Nah, this was way more fun," he said, grinning. "Besides, it's all part of the learning process. I knew getting you guys to do these projects was a great idea." I'd never missed school so much.